Concrete is everywhere. In cities, in films, in songs, heck, even in boats. Yet, we often forget this material because of its cold and unwelcoming appearance. It wasn't always like that though. There was a period where concrete was really sought after and enjoyed by most people. So let's discover that together. Hello angels and seraphs, I'm Artemis. I'm an artist who enjoys creating characters, writing stories, and occasionally creating worlds. Today I wanted to share with you one of my biggest inspirations for one of my stories, which is brutalism, and also tell you a bit about my story, which is called Eden Pharmacy. It's a story I came up with 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember. Last year I was so determined that I wrote 200 pages and even made a pilot episode, then never touched it again. But this year I really want to make a webcomic. I don't know if I will translate it yet because that sounds like a lot of work, but I'll still be talking about it on this channel. And in this video, I would like to show you a part of my world building and also use that as an excuse to talk about architecture. I'm gonna start by explaining what brutalism is and also make some quick studies. Then I'll be designing my own city in Blender. So now let's take some concrete blocks into our card and let's build a city. Brutalism is an architectural style resulting from the modern movement, which knows a great popularity between the 50s and the 70s. After the Second World War, European countries are devastated, people no longer have a place they can call home. Moreover, resources are limited. Therefore, the architect's challenge is to create houses rapidly and as cheaply as possible. That's where brutalism comes into play. It first starts in the United Kingdom and Europe, before spreading to other parts of the world. The term brutalism comes from the French term brut. Béton brut is the term used by the architect Le Corbusier, who sees in this material a wild, natural, and primitive aspect when it is used without ornamentation. The first one to use this term is the architect Hans Asplund, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, to describe the Villa Gold by Banged Edman and Leonard Holm. He referred this as a new brutalism, a term then imported into England. Now we can look at the philosophy of brutalism. Architects of the movement prioritize functionality, honesty, and social purpose over ornamentation, which was considered bourgeois. Their style is heavily influenced by socialist utopian ideas. That's why most early brutalist housing projects are affordable and created to fulfill modern needs and preoccupations. Brutalist structures are characterized by angular and geometric shapes. It also uses repetition in lots of designs. Brutalism aims as well to make buildings as functional as possible. That's why some housing units centralize several businesses and leisure places. Brutalist designs tend to show the interior of the buildings as well as the structure of amenities, which are usually hidden. A great majority of brutalist constructions are essentially made of concrete, steel, and glass, which are considered to be modern and sustainable material. The use of raw concrete aims notably to be in opposition with the embellishments and refinement of the board style. Here, architects want to promote a form of simplicity and destitution. About the colors and light, The color palette are usually limited, monochromatic, and mostly gray. However, since concrete is a pretty light material, it allows architects to play with natural light. Since the structure is not supported by walls but by pillars in some cases, just like l'Église du Rancy in France, for example, which I think is my favorite edifice, or at least one of my favorites. So, this is not really brutalism, but I still wanted to talk about it since it plays a major part in the history of concrete. Even though concrete was already used by Egyptians around 2600 BCE, and also Romans throughout the 1st century BCE, we need to wait until the end of the 19th century for reinforced concrete to be exploited in modern construction. Reinforced concrete is a building material composed of concrete and steel bars. However, contrary to what you may think, it was not initially used in construction. The first known concrete boat was an invention of the French engineer Joseph Lambeau. It's a cement boat armed with an iron lattice that was first tested in 1848. In a concrete boat, the main material of construction of the hull is reinforced concrete or ferrocement, rather than more usual materials such as wood and steel. Quick parenthesis. Ferrocement is basically just mortar spread on a framework made of metal mesh and small steel bars. It creates a thin but very strong shell, which can be modeled in almost any shapes. The advantages of concrete construction are the low cost and availability of materials. On the other hand, the disadvantages are a significant labor cost and operating expenses. In addition, reinforced concrete ships require thick hulls with therefore a significant mass to maneuver and reduced space for loading. That's why nowadays you don't see many concrete boats. So, I could spend hours talking about this man, but I will try to keep it short. Le Corbusier is a precursor of brutalism who inspired many architects, notably with his most known work, La Cité Radieuse in Marseille, built in 1952. Parallel to the artistic movement of pop art, brutalism is expressed notably through the construction of international buildings and universities. La Cité Radieuse attempts to concretize a new form of city, a vertical village, called housing unit, or unité d'habitation in French. The residence has 337 apartments of 23 different types, separated by what are called inner streets. There's also a hotel with 21 rooms, and there's also a shopping arcade at the 3rd street with various businesses. It also includes various commercial services, a pastry shop, a restaurant, a nursery, a bookstore specialized in architecture, and so on. The roof terrace of the unit, open to the public, is occupied by public facilities. There's a kindergarten playground, an athletic track, a small children's pool, and an outdoor auditorium. These services, available to the public all the year round, are the perfect illustration of the vertical village wanted by Le Corbusier. The whole of La Cité Radieuse de Marseille is designed as an agora. It's a space for meeting residents and visitors, which, in my opinion, makes it a rather warm place, contrary to what one might think, given the place that concrete takes. Tadao Ando was born during the Second World War and was raised by his great-grandmother. He was a boxer, but he decided to pursue another project, becoming an architect. Thanks to his athletic career, he traveled a lot and was inspired by architects such as Le Corbusier, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Mies van der Rohe. Going back to his country, he founded his studio in Osaka in 1969, Tadao Ando Architects and Associates. Tadao Ando's style is defined by the Italian historian of architecture Francesco Dalco as critical regionalism. It's basically an architectural approach that aims to balance two things. 1. Modernization. and that means embracing new technologies, materials, and design methods. 2. Respecting cultural identity, which is preserving local traditions, geography, and social context. We may see that he is heavily influenced by Japanese culture, but also due to his numerous travels, the influence of modernism is really visible. Tadao Ando tends to make clever use of light in his designs and uses concrete in its purest form. He wants to accentuate nothingness and emptiness in order to show the beauty of simplicity. That said, we can talk about his first work as an architect, the Tomishima house. Originally, this house was conceived for a small family, but they had to renounce it because of a twin pregnancy. Tadao Ando then made this his agency's headquarters. So, the small building is composed of 7 floors built around an atrium, which allows natural light to flow down through the atrium, illuminating the interior. From the outside, the building appears minimalistic with the simplicity of its geometrical shapes. However, once you step inside, you're welcomed by a complex 3-dimensional structure with multiple levels, interlocking volumes, and dynamic circulation paths. The main material used is exposed concrete, which may seem cold, raw, and honest on its own. Nevertheless, this is softened with natural light. In general, the Tomishima house presents all the architectural and stylistic elements typical of Tadao Ando's work. So here are some of my sketches. If you are interested in discovering more about the artists I presented to you, you can check the description. I've linked everything I used for this video and more. Okay, so now I'm gonna yap about my world building. So for this video, I decided to design one of the cities from my world, which is called the Swamp. But I'm gonna start by explaining the general history, geography, and magic system, but also a bit of technology because it's different from our world. Then I'll talk about the swamps more in detail. About 20 years ago, the world was swallowed up by water. Thus, an entire civilization had to be rebuilt as a matter of urgency. On top of that, new plants and animals developed, and with them, new diseases appeared. The latter gave strange powers to the sick people, making them uncontrollable and dangerous. At the same time, another group of people have also obtained powers. They are called the immunes. Furthermore, following the immersion of continents, 4 countries were formed, and they each treat sick people differently. First, there is the Northland, which is also called Barren Land. So this is the only part of the world that survived water, but no one lives there anymore because they fear it will sink. The barren land corresponds to the North Pole of the former world. Then there is Rosalia, the land of the South. This country looks more like a factory or a steel fortress than anything. Hospitals there operate a bit like an army. Doctors track down patients to eradicate them. Here there are almost no plants either. On the one hand, to avoid contamination, but also it's to prevent patients from hiding their diseases by healing. Then there is Altar, the land of the East, made entirely of glass and clouds. They managed to make their country fly over water thanks to plants with aerial powers. The people of Altar are very religious and worship the sick people as deities. At first glance, you might think it's a good thing, but not exactly. And finally, there is Eden, the land of the West, entirely made of concrete. This is where my story takes place, hence the title Eden Pharmacy. The land of the West is the most in harmony with nature because they don't seek to control it or change it. They simply build depending on it, and in return, nature helps them. For example, I have some plants that can serve as street lights. Some other plants can clean the roads, and so on. However, the major downside of Eden is that those who are poor have no chance of getting treated. Here, it's more a question of class and hierarchy. Eden is then divided into 3 parts. There is Fleuve, where the first-class population lives. It's mainly important doctors who live there. It's also where the largest and first hospital of this modern world is located, the Eden Pharmacy. Then there is River, where the middle class lives. There are clinics there, and River is quite close to the Eden Pharmacy, so it allows them to handle emergencies and crises quickly. Finally, there is Swamps, the poorest part of Eden. There are no doctors there. To be a doctor, you need a certification recognized by Eden Pharmacy, and if you don't have this certification, well, you are basically an outlaw. However, and fortunately, my main character, Kale, doesn't care about the rules. But I'll talk about that in other videos where I will present my characters. That's about it for geography and history. As for the magic system, it's an element-based system, a bit like Genshin Impact if you know that game. I think I was inspired by it because when I created this system, I used to play it a lot. Anyways, the elements all come from living beings except for light. So the elements are divided into different categories. There's water, earth, fire, air, body, light, and spirit. To create matter, antidotes, or anything else, these elements are usually contained in small beads. The properties of these beads can vary depending on where it's extracted. So, for example, the fire of a plant A will not have the same effect as the fire of a plant B. On top of that, some elements are rarer than others. For example, water is much easier to obtain because in my world, well, it's basically everywhere. Pure light, on the other hand, is more difficult to get since the closest source of natural light is the sun and it's still pretty far. So it can take years to fill a single bead with pure light. That's why there are solar panels all over River and Fleuve. In the meantime, to replace the pure light beads, scientists use artificial lights. It's made thanks to the electricity produced by a generator. Each country has a generator, and Eden's is located in swamps. Okay, now let's talk a bit more about the central element, the sick versus the immune. So, I said earlier that the elements all come from living beings. I will add that every living being has 1 or 2 elements, but 2 elements means that it's toxic, except for humans who have them all. That's why humans are the only one who can get sick. I will explain. For ill people, 2 elements are in surplus. One is caused by a virus, a bacterium, a parasite, or even a mental disorder. The other element is the response of the body, which tries to rebalance its elements. The disease causes constant or temporary mental and or physical pain. A sickness is often uncontrollable and gives rise to physical transformation when the patient has a crisis. As for immune people, however, only one of these elements is in surplus. But unlike sick people, this element is natural and does not come from a virus or something else. Immunity is not uncontrollable and remains for life, unlike certain diseases that can be temporary, such as a simple cold, for example. Immunity is usually triggered when being confronted with an ill person. So, for example, let's say you have someone who has a crisis around you. Well, if they try to attack you, your immunity can show up at that moment to defend yourself against the disease. Another thing is that the immune can't catch a serious disease or lose control of their disease when they have a minor wound, such as a headache, for example, or when they get a scratch. And there you go. Well, I tried to summarize as much as possible for the magic system, but there are too many things I want to talk about. But I don't want to edit a 1-hour video, so yeah. Oh yes, and as for technology, I'll try to keep it short as well, shorter. For technology, at least in Eden, water plants are mainly used to avoid losing writings and electronic devices, because after the immersion, most of these have been lost. That's why we rarely find paper. All the books are written on clear sheets and the letters light up every time you turn the pages. As for the devices, most of the time there are tablets that, instead of having a screen, are made of water and light planes that can project more complex images. But hey, these are rare, and since they have 2 elements, they are pretty toxic and difficult to make. So in this video I decided to design the city of swamps because it's where the first episodes of my story take place. As you may have seen in the speed paint where I studied, I was inspired by some brutalist buildings. I made 3D models on Blender too, so if you want a tutorial, let me know. Well, actually I'm a beginner, and at first I was really afraid to use this software, but honestly it's not that scary. But I digress. So, Swamps is a city located in a giant concrete cube with 4 entrances, one for each cardinal point. The roof is made up of several concrete slabs supported by pillars to let you see the light from the outside. This cube was supposed to be temporary and protect people from water, but with the construction of the Eden Pharmacy, they have exhausted all resources and have never been able to finish the city. That's why there are half-built buildings eroded by humidity. Most of the plants found in swamps are fire and air plants. Warm plants help to avoid flooding because they regulate the height of water. But as a result, it's super hot and humid, like in a jungle. That's where the air plants come into play. They are much less numerous than the fire plants, but they ensure that it's not too hot. Moreover, the inhabitants of swamps, at least those who can afford it, wear clothes made of air plant fiber. So the dominant colors would be grey, green, orange, and teal. And oh yes, so no car. People move by boats, and of course, these boats are made of concrete. I allowed myself a bit of wacky shapes for this one because thanks to the fact that airplanes are there to make them float anyway, I have an excuse. Most shops and restaurants are on small concrete boats like this, so they are really common. This one is supposed to be a fruit seller that will be used for the prologue of my webcomic. Well, apart from that, as far as law and politics are concerned, since Swamp has been somewhat abandoned by a flood and a river, well, they had to make do. A municipal council has been formed. It's basically a group of people who make decisions and get the population to vote. Since there is not necessarily a police or a court, the municipal council must make the law. Also, there are not many prisons, because for serious crimes such as murder, the criminals will be judged directly in the river most of the time, or even flood, but it's very rare. So there is a branch of the municipal council that deals with making the law, but they don't have the right to cure sick people, as I said earlier, so they just lock them up while waiting for a doctor to arrive, and it can take an enormous amount of time. As for education, there are no schools after high school. Either students have results far above the average and take tests in a school in a river or even flood, or they stay in swamps and find a job. Now, the more fun part is that the municipal council tries to put things in place for entertainment from time to time. They organize an annual carnival where there are dance performances, floats parade on the water, and there is music throughout the city. Some young people have tried also to set up spaces like a skateboard park, a small outdoor cinema, a kind of mini library where people have to give a book to borrow one in exchange. Other than that, there are several collective vegetable gardens and canteens set up for orphans and those who can't afford food. Everyone takes care of it a little to get food. And that's it for swamps. Honestly, this is the city I've developed the most, even though it's not where most of the story takes place. But hey, it was fun to do. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Actually, I discovered brutalism when I was in high school, and I don't know how I managed to fall in love with this style, even given the amount of work, research, and pain my teacher was giving us at that time. Anyway, maybe I'll talk about other styles in other videos, because Gothic and Neo-Gothic also inspired a short story I started writing. I'm also living for Art Nouveau and Art Deco. I need to talk about these. And if you have any style that you like in mind, please share it. I love discovering new stuff and of course drawing them. I also hope you like my world building. I think I'll talk more about some of my characters in other videos, as I said earlier. Until then, have a nice day or night.